Hey family, it is time for Let's Talk Live. So I'm going to give you guys a few seconds, give Instagram a few moments to let you guys know that we are on. Tonight we have an amazing guest, Raven Temple. Is she there yet? No. Who is a master nutritionist who is going to come on and talk to us about the importance of nutrition during the pregnancy and postpartum seasons. And so, as you know, you're always going to hear about the importance of nutrition, eat well, eat well, eat well. But at the end of the day, there is a balance to what is actually good for your unique body. There are combinations of minerals and vitamins that are super important that play a role in what your body is actually even able to absorb when you are eating certain foods, regardless of whether they're healthy or not. And so I'm very excited to get into this conversation with her this evening. Yeah, there she is. I think you need to request to join, and then we're going to get this conversation started. Um, Let me accept, and let's go.
Hi.
Hi.
You.
I'm doing well. Let me just make sure. Are you able to see me clearly?
Yes.
Okay, I can see you as well. So, welcome to Let's Talk Live. This is just every Tuesday I go live and just kind of speak about what's on my heart, or I highlight professionals and what they do, and tend to tailor it to our pregnant and postpartum families. And so, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your background and who you are. I did a little mini intro just about what we're going to talk about in your name, but I would love for you to really talk about all the dynamic things that you have done and what you're currently doing and just who you are. Who is Miss Temple?
Well, thank you so much for having me. Really excited to talk about this topic. It's a huge passion of mine. My name is Raven Temple. I am the owner and executive chef of Farm to Temple. We are a meal prep and delivery business service out of Baltimore, Maryland. I originally started the company about 7 years ago, stopped it and restarted last year, and we've kind of been taking off since then. So my passion is food. My passion is nutrition. My passion is just really pouring into all communities, but specifically spaces, Black and Brown communities, where food and nutrition hasn't been on the forefront of our minds as a community, and where we suffered a lot of preventable illnesses because of that. So just getting into epigenetics, have my master's in complementary alternative medicine, which is a really long way of saying not traditional medicine, and just really got into that space. Just having my own health issues years ago, and just wanting to take more ownership of just how what I put inside my body and how it affects my day to day. And that kind of got the ball started with my health and wellness journey, which turned into an education, which turned into a career. And so it's just amazing to be in a space where my 9 to 5 job and my business is all surrounding the health and wellness and food field. So it really is a blessing. I don't Everything kind of happens for a reason, because if I never would have gone through those issues, I probably never would have been at the point where I am now. So everything really truly does kind of leads you to the next step.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so
I love that because so much, even in birth work, there's so many birth workers and folks that are doing this work where our personal experiences or experience we witnessed led us along this path. And I really adore you even sharing that piece because for me, and we're going to delve into it, and I'm hoping that we don't nerd out too much for the
I
folks in the audience because epigenetics is my jam. I know we kind of went and we're like, oh my God, this is amazing. But we're hearing so much about how trauma and generational curses and generational blessings are passed down through epigenetics, habits, and all of this. And I really got introduced to it on the healing side of things, right? I believe you shared with me your alma mater was Morgan State,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that was I actually saw Dr. Joy DeGruy Leary at a lecture at Morgan about 2005, 2006 changed my life and how I approached my healing journey and how I assessed things that were happening in my family and the healing that needed to take place. And so I would love for you to start off with really just an introduction to how important nutrition is,
Yeah.
how it manifests through our DNA, and how we can change our own personal trajectory, but also that of those that we birth in the future in our lineage through healthy choices. So could you share a little bit about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, so I actually was introduced to it. I ended up writing my thesis on the impact of food deserts in Black and Brown communities, and looking at the correlation to why is it that these people who live in lower socioeconomic communities and people of Black and Brown descent, they tend to have not only these health issues, but just a lot of different issues in general, outside of just the political and the systematic oppression that comes with that. What really fascinated me was how much nutrition being passed down from your mom really does make an impact. And like you said, stress and trauma is just as big of an impact, if not more. And so you hear these terms of like generational curses, and that term is thrown around. But when it comes to the genetic level, pretty much epigenetics is the ability for your genes to be altered based upon your mother, your grandmother's experiences, whether it be trauma, whether it be stress, whether it be diet, lifestyle choices. And it's not like the easiest way to explain it, it's not like it's if your mom had a really traumatic time when she was pregnant or had poor nutrition, it is damaging the genes, but your genes, they can be altered in different ways. So if you are just not having a good, diet and lifestyle, it can alter those genes, unfortunately, to your fetus. So even if you have the baby and your lifestyle improves and the baby's life improves and they grow up to be great, their genes are a lot of times permanently altered because of what was passed down. And so a lot of people, I think it's switching the idea to thinking like, oh, if I had more money or if I was in this place, and we'll do better at that point. It's like, no, yes, but it actually starts well before you get to that point where you can quote unquote do better, because you might have potentially altered your baby's genes, which, and then if they continue that, they alter their baby's genes, and thus you have those generational curses of everyone in my family has hypertension, everyone in my family has diabetes. Sometimes you can now your child, their genetic code is more predisposed to develop that. So even if they do live right and they do eat right, because their genetic code is predisposed to it, just the smallest thing can tip them over the scale. And so when you start looking at why are so many Black and brown people with hypertension, our diet's not that much worse than others, in America. Like all in all, Americans have not the best diet. But why is it that the Black and brown are dealing with hypertension, diabetes, cardiovascular issues? It's because of the epigenetics being passed down years after years after years. On top of the stress and the trauma, we're already altering those genes so much that we kind of, any little thing and it tips us over the edge in comparison to others
So
don't have those same issues.
it's so deep, right? And sometimes when we hear this type of information, we can be tempted to feel like, well, it's already happened, or I've already stopped having my children, or I don't plan on having children, so it's no big deal. But I am truly a believer of like the ripple effect. I think that, and I think and believe that every choice that we make, we could positively have a ripple effect, or or negatively have a ripple effect in not only our lives, but our community's lives. And I really want to encourage anyone that's listening. if you're feeling any kind of like helplessness or what can I do, even if you make a choice now,
Exactly.
not only are you able to positively impact yourself, your children, but you can begin to establish habits and expectations, right? So if our expectation was we got two meats, two starches, two pots of greens that have been boiled to oblivion on the table, and this is what a good meal is, we are now not only planting the actual food seed into our family members, but we're training our mind and our neurons to associate goodness with things that are actually unhealthy for us. So even if you're making just a simple choice that is going to be around your nutrition for the positive, it can have a positive ripple effect for generations because you're able to set the standard and the expectation about what true health actually is.
Exactly. And you're
So,
altering the community. You're demanding that, you know, people who make the decisions of putting certain foods and in your environment, that they will know that our community doesn't want, we want fresh food. We don't want to be in a food desert. We demand that you put a grocery store in our area because they, unfortunately, it takes you as a community to say, no, we deserve more. We pay taxes too. We work hard too. We deserve the good food places and having it be, and we shouldn't have to drive 20 miles just to find a grocery store, or, you know, but then there's a liquor store in every corner. And, you know, I enjoy my wine like everybody, so I'm not anti-liquor. But I also think that it shouldn't be that a food desert is the norm. It shouldn't be that there are some kids that literally haven't been introduced to vegetables because maybe their moms can't drive all the way across town, and so it's like whatever you can get home from school in a 2 mile radius, that's it is what it is. It shouldn't be that when you can go to other communities and on every single block there's a Mom's, there's a Target, there's a Safeway, there's a ShopRite.
yeah.
It's, yeah.
So the other piece to this, and I want to kind of pivot into the importance of maximizing the nutrients that we do have access to. And along my journey, I've learned a lot about how to match certain vitamins and minerals so that they can have maximum health effect. And I think if you could kind of delve into that a little bit, because as we're going grocery shopping and or maybe we're at the farmer's market, right? And we're looking at everything and we're trying to decide what to pick. We are on a limited budget. We might have some really picky children that are like, I don't want to eat this and that. How can the average person look at a huge selection of maybe the more cost effective vegetables, maybe the spinaches, the broccolis, the whatever, how can they match that? Because you have a particular perspective that is way in depth. You've got your masters and all of this. But what if somebody's just like, should I pick the spinach or should I pick the broccoli? Like, let me know. Because as well in the Black community, we have issues with like anemia. Our children have asthma, like all these things. So what are some foods that could make up a really healthy, quick, inexpensive meal? And then if you could go a step further on that and kind of talk about the nutrients that make up that meal that make it the most beneficial. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
no, that's a really good question, because you're right. It can be very overwhelming when you are starting off on your new journey. You're viewing the world. I feel like the hardest part initially is like getting your mind to view things differently. But once you do that, the second hardest part is like you said, oh my gosh, there's all these choices. So the way when I did my one-on-one coaching with people who just wanted a simple approach. I'm not a big carb counter, calorie counter person. The only time I'm really big on that, if you're a professional athlete, a bodybuilder, sure. If you're an average person like me and you, we don't need to worry about all of that. We don't need to worry about that.